Hello and welcome to freelywhole Creative. I'm Liberty, your creativity and life restoration coach from freelywhole.com, where we're making beauty from ashes. Today's tutorial is a one-sheet wonder for journal ephemera, that is, coordinating inserts for your eclectic or junk journals or other projects. If you're new here, please click the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any future videos. If you aren't new, thanks for sticking with me through my recent hiatus. I don't usually share much about my personal life, but since my ministry includes healing through creativity, today I'll give just a bit of explanation for my recent absence. But as usual, this is a full tutorial. So now, join me on the journey and let's create. For today's project, you're going to need one sheet of 12 by 12 light cardstock or heavy paper, and double-sided will be best. Since the ones we'll be doing today and possibly in this series are done with 6 by 6, we actually cut the 12 by 12 into 6 by 6. You could also use a 6 by 6 paper pad if it is a lighter cardstock and double-sided, and if the patterns all coordinate that you can mix and match them together. You'll also need our standard supplies of your paper trimmer, scoreboard, small one will work just fine for today's project, scissors, glue, distress collage medium is my favorite. Your other supplies will depend on which versions you're going to be making of these. So for our envelopes, we'll need the envelope punch board, or a workaround for that. For the policy envelopes, you'll need a circle punch. For the closure, I've got a 3/4 inch one here. For the tags, you can either just use your scissors, or I have a tag punch I use. And I used a ribbon punch for the hole in the top of that. For some of them, I used my corner rounder. And for some of them, I did a little bit of stamping on them. For these ones, I just used my offcuts for decorations, but for these ones, I used some Tim Holtz ephemera to do the decorations on those. So go grab your supplies and let's get started. Okay, I already cut my 6 by 6 squares out of my 12 by 12 piece, and we're going to start with the envelope. Super simple. If you have an envelope punch board, we are going to punch and score at 2 5/8. So line your piece up at 2 5/8. Make your punch and score. We're going to turn and we're going to put that score line along our little pointer there, and if you fold it first, it might be easier to see, to get it lined up, especially is for me since I'm working from the side, not over top. Punch and score. Again, line up that score line and punch and score. Turn it again one more time, and this one should line this edge up right with your edge there. Punch and score, and then I like to turn it around and use my top, find where the top of your envelope's going to be, and I like to round that corner with the other side of the envelope punch board. We're going to fold and crease all of our score lines. The other thing I like to do with my envelopes, rather than just leaving that up there, I like to fold this flap over to line up pretty much with my two edges there, and then either fold it and glue it down or cut it off. Line that up and cut it off. It gives a good clean finish. Now if you want to, you can ink your edges before gluing it down on this paper. I'm not going to. Obviously I did on the Tim Holtz grungier paper, but this is more of a shabby chic, clean look to it. So now we just need to glue two places, and that's along this edge up to our cut piece, and same thing on the other side, along the edge up to the cut piece, which will fold right in there. And our first piece is done, except for the closure, which we will use from a cutoff of another one of our pieces. The next piece we'll do is our policy envelope, and for that we want to score at 1.5 inches, at 4.25 inch, and that's going to leave 1 3/4 left. Fold and burnish those. Okay. We also want to find our bottom, and we're going to score 3/4 inch from the bottom and 1 inch from the top. So flip it around 180 degrees and score 1 inch at the top. And fold and burnish those score lines. Now we need to get rid of our corners. Take some of the bulk out. So on the bottom 3/4 inch sides, go above the score line a little bit and cut in to the score line there, and on this fold cut just straight up just inside the score line. Same thing on the other side, straight up just inside the score line, and then over from the side, going just above the score line and kind of slanting in to your cross score line there. And what that does is allow these folds to be just above that fold, so you've got enough room for this to clear it as it goes up. And since you've cut these straight up, that allows you to come in and round these corners if you want to. Not necessary if you don't want to, but that forms our bottom. And then on the top, we're going to do the same thing. Go just under the score line and cut kind of at an angle to where it meets the cross score line. Go straight down just inside the fold line here. Straight down just inside the fold line. And at a slight angle up to the fold line. Again, that's going to help our top fold down, and also we could even angle this a little bit more or cut a U shape out of there to allow us to access that pocket a little better. To do that, if you want to have your sides even, line up your top flap there and just come in at a little deeper angle, holding both sides together, but being careful not to crease your front, just around it. And there we go, and we can round our top flap like we did the bottom one. And now this is ready to glue together. First, we want to do just a very thin line at the edge of our inside side flap. And then a very thin line at the inside of the outside flap. And fold that over. Then we want to do around our bottom flap. And again, our closures for this will be cut out of our scraps. We can do that from the scraps we have right here. For our top, 1, 2, and I like to do 4 circles so that I can have them a bit more reinforced, a little bit stronger by gluing 2 together. Okay, so then I'm going to glue the circles to each together. What I'm going to do, I'm going to punch in the center of this, so measure, and sometimes using millimeters is easier to divide what's in half there. So we're just under 7, so we're going to go just under 3.5. And I'm going to go in about 1/4 inch from the bottom of the flap there. And I'm just going to punch a hole with my pokey tool. I'm going to do that just a little bit bigger a hole just to get my brad in easier with my crocodile, but you don't have to use the crocodile. You can just take your pokey tool and widen, circle around in there and make it a little bit bigger, which is exactly what we're going to have to do for our bottom one. So to line that up underneath there, we're going to see that we're going to have to go right about there. Now, I don't want to put a mark on the front of my envelope, so I'm going to make sure this pokes all the way through and leaves me just a little indent there where I can see where that poke is supposed to be. And then I'm just going to put a little foam piece underneath there so that I can poke through and into the foam and not into the front of my envelope. So round that out to get it a little bit bigger. I've already got the little hole in this, and hopefully it is close to the center I'm going to line my two circles up together, put them in my crocodile, and punch as close to the center as I can eyeball through both circles. And now we can use a couple of brads to attach our circles. So that your tags don't get caught on that brad, you might want to put a little piece of washi tape or something in the side of there to cover the legs of that brad. I'm really messing this one up, so I'm going to repunch a different hole. My circle will cover that one, but I want this one closer to the middle also. So that my circle will rest inside of my flap completely. But as you notice, it's covering up that hole. And I could put a little reinforcement back behind there if I want. And I may also to cover those brad legs, but with a few oopsies, we've got our second piece of the ephemera done. Okay, the next one that we're going to do is the file folder. And the first thing I want to do is cut 2 inches off of one side. So now we have a 4x6 piece here. Okay, we're going to take our 4x6 piece and we're going to put the bottom along the left edge, and we're going to score at 3 3/8. And we can fold and crease that. Burnish it with our bone folder. So we want to reduce this top flap to a 1/2 inch. Fold up there, and I've got this little strip, which I believe we're going to use for something else anyhow. Next, I'm going to bring in my envelope punch board. You could also just round this by hand, but I'm going to put it on here. I'll line that up in the center and punch. And I'm going to go over to 2 inches, and again, oh, let's make that 1 3/4. Line that up and punch again to give me a little tab there. 2 inches obviously would have been totally fine for that and made us a little bigger tab. Your tab can be whatever size you want it to be. Next, I'm going to come in with my ruler and a craft knife, and I am just going to cut that excess off. You can do this with scissors if you are better with scissors and cutting straight than I am. And there we go, we've got our file folder. Again, I want to come in with my corner rounder and round the rest of my corners. Again, we're going to be using our offcuts here for some of our embellishment decorations. The fourth piece is a little tag folio, very simple to do. We're going to score it right down the middle at 3 inches. We're going to fold and burnish. We're going to cut the little tag corners at the top. And on the inside, I'm going to cut a couple of pockets from our piece that we cut off of the other. So you can put these just as straight pockets in there, or you can angle them, either rounding them off or cutting them all the way down as an angle. In this one, I angled them out to the side, and I think I may do that on this one too. Start by cutting this in half at 3 inches. Now, because this is cardstock, there's going to be a little bit of bulk that I want to cut out of the middle so it doesn't get hung up on the score line there. So I'm going to take both pieces in together and just cut them just a sliver underneath that 3 inches. So maybe a 1/16 of an inch cut off. And then I'm going to do an angle again. See what orientation I want these to be. Maybe cut down from there. Yeah, I think that way. So I'm going to start at that top corner. Got the corner lined up with my edge here, and I've come in about 3/4 of an inch there and cut that little piece off, and let's see what our pockets are going to look like. Let's glue these pockets in. So I've glued on 3 sides and left our angled top open. And we're going to do the same thing on the other one. It's easiest for me to hold it on the side I don't want glue on, and then I don't mess up as much anyhow. Last thing I can do on here is measure in on my top and find the center. Again, you could just eyeball this, and a lot of times I do. Put a mark where the center is, come in with my hole punch, or in this case ribbon punch. Try to line it up as close to that center as I can, and punch. Erase your dot if it didn't get punched out. Now, since this is a folio, you're not actually going to want to put a ribbon through there unless you put 2 different ribbons, because if you put a ribbon and tie it, you're not going to be able to open your folio. But once those get glued solid in, you'll have 2 little pockets to put ephemera in. Okay, let's see what we have of offcuts that we can use to decorate with. First thing I'm going to take is this little piece that was cut off from, I believe, our folder there, and I'm going to glue that down. I'm going to cut the edges, and I'm going to glue that down as a little tuck for my envelope flap there. Decide if you want the same color or if you want your contrasting. I'll do my contrasting piece there and just glue those edges. I'm going to round the corners on this first, just to make it a little more decorative. If I had much narrower than this, I wouldn't have been able to round them. But then just glue right on the edges. And when you put it on, make sure that your glued part does not cover your cut edge there, so that you can get your flap in and out. I'm going to do the same thing with the other little offcut piece that's like that, just for decoration on the front of my folder. And I'll round off those corners. You don't have to. I'll put that on here somewhere as a label, and I'll probably stamp something on that later. Decide if we want anything on these two pieces. We've got these longer strip here that could just be a decorative element going down the side, possibly. Let's see if we can get a circle cut out of here. Yeah, so I can put that as a little decoration on the other side of my policy envelope. If I wanted to glue this down in my thing, I could probably do it on this side instead. We have lots of options here, but it's just about using up these scraps and little pieces. Let's see, I'm going to take this little strip and even it off. I won't be able to round the corners because it's so small, but I can get a little strip out of it, and I can use that on there, stamp on it or something. I may go for a rectangle out of this. I could do another little circle embellishment, but I think I'll go and see how big of a rectangle I can get on this one. So this one gives me about 1/2 by 1.5. So I've got a couple little rectangular pieces I can use. Let's see, I wonder if I can get a 5/8 inch circle out of what's left here. Just barely. Yep. So with just this little bit of scrap trash left, I've used up almost an entire 12 by 12 inch sheet of paper to make 4 little embellishment inserts for a journal and to do some decorating on them. I may add some more pieces. I may do some stamping on the pieces that I've got there that I'm adding. I'll show you some pictures, stills in the final. I will be back. I've got more shapes and elements that we can use doing this same technique. I'll be back with a part 2. Thank you for joining me on our creative journey today, and I hope that you were inspired, that you'll subscribe, like, and comment here, and that you'll share this with your friends, as well as sharing your creations with us. I want to see your take on this. The link is down in the post. Now, go make beauty from ashes, and may your life be freely whole.